Hello everyone, my name is Brendan, and today I'll be talking about how to add virtual reality support to Unity, as presented by the Office of the Vice President of Research. Before we begin, I do recommend checking out our previous video on how to use the Unity game engine, as a lot of the things that we'll be going over today will build upon that knowledge. This course will be going over adding virtual reality functionality to Unity. We will not be covering the basics here. You won't need to know any scripting, but you will need to have a basic understanding of the three-dimensional workspace and how to manipulate game objects in that space. Adding virtual reality to a project is not difficult, but does require a few steps to get going. You will need to make sure you have Steam with Steam VR installed in order to run your project. Let's begin by opening Unity Hub and making a new project. You will be choosing 3D for this workshop today. You may notice the virtual reality lightweight render pipeline option. You can use this if you're wanting to include shader graphs in post-processing. However, there's no guarantee that it will work with the content of today's workshops. Start by naming your project and choosing a save location. Once Unity is loaded, we'll start by making a very simple scene. We will begin by creating a plane. You'll want to make sure that this plane is set to position 0, 0, 0 and scale of 1, 1, 1. Next, we will want to create a cube. We're going to want to set this position to 0, 0.5, and 2. We will then want to set the scale to 6, 1, and 2. We'll go ahead and name this table. Next, we're going to want to create another cube. We will name this one box. We will set this one's position to -1, 1.25, and 2. Then we will set its scale to 0.5 by 0.5 by 0.5. Then we're going to create a sphere. We're going to want to set this one's position to 1, 1.25, and 2. We will then set its scale to 0.5 by 0.5 by 0.5. Then go ahead and rename this ball. Next, we're going to want to create an empty game object. We'll name this environment. Then we'll take all of the objects that we just created and place them as children of the environment to keep everything nice and tidy. After that, you'll want to navigate to the project view and select Assets. We'll create a new folder and name this Materials. Then, in that Materials folder, you'll want to create a new material. We'll name this Red. You're going to want to change the albedo of that material to red. Then we'll create another material. This one will be named Blue. Then we'll go ahead and set this one's albedo to blue. Now we'll want to apply the red material to the box and the blue material to the ball. This is going to be our basic scene to work with. Next, we'll need to get a virtual reality camera set up. To do this, we'll actually go to the Asset Store. Once the Asset Store loads, search for Steam VR. We're going to want the Steam VR plugin created by the Valve Corporation. There are other toolkits available, but for now we will be using this one. It is beneficial to look around at other options like Newton VR or Virtual Reality Toolkit to see what all is available, and figure out what is best for your specific project. Steam VR works with most major PC-powered headsets like the Rift and the Vive. But if you are developing for Oculus-specific headsets or for AR, you may want to look at a different solution, like the Oculus plugin or the ARKit and ARCore SDKs. Go ahead and select Download or Import. Once everything is downloaded and imported, this Steam VR plugin window will pop up. There are a couple of things in here that we don't necessarily need to use, but we'll keep them in for now. Go ahead and import all, and then click import. Once everything is imported, you will see this SteamVR splash screen. It is important to note that between updates of Unity and different versions of Unity, you should uninstall and reinstall your SteamVR plugins. Go ahead and click Accept All. This is just changing some basic game properties so that SteamVR works properly. You may see some warnings in your console about the SteamVR plugin. So long as there are no red error icons, you should be good to go. Next, we'll need to change some project settings to ensure that Unity can output to XR. In order to do this, we'll want to go Edit and Project Settings. I already have the window open, so I'm just going to select it. From here, you're going to want to select Player, and then make sure this Virtual Reality Supported checkbox is selected. You will also see these Virtual Reality SDKs. These are what are going to allow you to use VR within Unity. Steam is using the OpenVR SDK. Oculus has their own SDK. Next, under the Project panel, you should see a SteamVR folder. This will hold all the assets that we just imported and everything you need to get started with VR. First thing we're going to want to do is get our player set up. Start by going to Assets, SteamVR, Interaction System, Core, and then Prefabs. Here you will see a player prefab. You can also use this search bar to search for it if you don't want to search through all the files manually. Go ahead and drag this to the hierarchy to actually add it to the scene. You're then, under the inspector, going to want to make sure that the position is set to 0, 0, 0, and that the scale is set to 3, 3, and 3. Before we start testing our scene, we'll want to make sure we only have one camera, and since the player prefab has one, we can delete our main camera. Now, go ahead and click Run. The first time you click Run, you should see this SteamVR notification pop up. Go ahead and click Yes. This is going to create the key bindings for our controllers. You might also get this error message as well. Go ahead and click Yes. That's going to generate the file that will actually have all of the key bindings in it. Once the SteamVR input window pops up, go ahead and click Save and Generate. Once that happens, you will have this pop up asking you to save. Go ahead and click Save. Once that process is complete, you can go ahead and close the SteamVR input. And over here, you will see this SteamVR splash screen. This will happen every time you click Run within the Unity engine. Go ahead and just click Accept All. Now if we click Run, we should be able to look around our scene. If you're using motion controllers as I am, you should see these as well. However, if you try to pick up objects or interact with the scene, you'll notice that your hand goes through them and it doesn't affect the objects at all. We'll have to add in interactions separately. You are able to create custom interactions via a C# scripting component, but SteamVR already provides us with a few basic interaction options. First, we'll want to make it so we can pick up our box and ball. Go ahead and select the box. Under the inspector, go to Add Component, and you're going to want to add the interactable component, which is going to be a C# scripting component, as well as the throwable C# scripting component. When you add the C# component, you will also notice that it adds another script called Velocity Estimator and a rigid body. We'll go ahead and add the same two components for our ball, both the throwable and the interactable. It does not matter in what order you add these components. Now if we run our scene, we should be able to pick up and throw our box and ball. You'll notice that you can either use the grip button or the trigger to grab objects. Depending on your application, you may want to adjust this, as it is common practice to use the grip button to grab items and use the trigger to interact. Such as with a laser, you would use the grip button to pick up the laser and use the trigger to activate or deactivate the laser. Next, we'll probably want to add some way for the player to move around the scene so they aren't stuck in one place. We could add in motion to the joystick, much like an Xbox or PlayStation game would, but this is not recommended for VR as it will induce motion sickness. Instead, we will want to use a teleportation system. Again, we can code this ourselves, but SteamVR already has a teleport system in place for us to use. First, you're going to want to go to Assets, then select SteamVR, then go to Interaction System, Teleport, and Prefabs. You can also search for it as well, just like with the other player object. Go ahead and drag the teleporting object prefab into the sample scene under Hierarchy. It's best to set objects such as this at a 0, 0, 0 position, and you don't need to scale them as they won't show up at all. Now if we click Run, we should be able to use the teleport functionality. At the moment, we are seeing a teleporting raycaster, but we aren't able to move anywhere. This is because the teleporting prefab doesn't tell the player where they can teleport to, only that they are able to. We will need to add a few more things in order to allow players to teleport. In our hierarchy panel, select the plane. We'll go ahead and duplicate this. I am using Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V to make a copy. You'll then want to offset it slightly in the Y direction. Under the inspector, go to Add Component. We'll want to go ahead and search for Teleport Area. Select the Teleport Area scripting component. That will add it to the plane that we just created and offset. This will allow a player to teleport to any position along this plane. Let's press Run to check it out now. You can see that I was able to teleport around freely on any point on that plane that I saw fit. There are other options if you don't want to allow your user to go anywhere, but only certain points. You can achieve this by adding in a teleport point. We can navigate to this prefabs folder again and find this teleport point. The other option again is to search for it and find this prefab. Go ahead and add the prefab into the scene. Then set its position to 0, 1, and 2. This should set it in the center of the table. Now, when we run our scene, we should be able to teleport anywhere on the plane or to that specific point. That covers two of the most basic interaction systems that virtual reality typically uses. SteamVR provides a lot of simple functionality and interactions that are used in a wide array of virtual reality applications. You can still add onto these components with your own custom interactions or with interactions and assets found on the Asset Store. Other toolkits like Newton VR, VRTK, or the official Oculus plugin also provide similar tool sets. For AR, you can either get the ARKit SDK for Apple OS or the ARCore SDK for Android OS to access similar tools for building mobile augmented reality applications. However, it is worth noting that mobile development is not as streamlined as PC or Mac development and will require some scripting. If you want to learn more, I suggest checking out the official Unity tutorial page for more Unity knowledge and taking a look at the official Unity documentation and scripting API online.